as we've had in like past slates. We did just get news, obviously a key component to the slate in Ben Simmons, at least to all of your lineups. Sorry, rip to John's.
All of the lineups that I had built today.
Rip to John's former lineups. He has been officially ruled out. TJ McConnell is starting in his place, so obvious value opening up there. In terms of other injuries that at least notable that we're waiting for, it's Mike Conley.
Yeah.
Like, we're waiting on Mike Conley news.
Which will then shift all of the lineups again, if whether he's in or out. So.
Right. And truth be told, we might not get that news before lock. Hopefully we do. Memphis plays at 8. Lock is at 7. We were just talking about it. Like, they have been good about getting their news out. I mean, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we find out hopefully during this live stream that Mike Conley's ruled out. Let's head over to Vegas where we have the 4 games. Orlando Philly is actually a pick'em. It started at 2.5, but Ben Simmons has moved that. The Ben Simmons news has shifted that to a pick'em game. The Magic are home. They have been pretty good at home. They are a playoff-ish team. They're currently 1 game out. Pick'em. Memphis, Oklahoma City, decent total. The only notable total we have is the Brooklyn-Portland game. That's the highest total, 223, 6 points. It is worth noting Utah is a 15-point favorite tonight against Phoenix. 15 on a 4-game slate. So if you were thinking about playing cash, I think John would agree with what I'm about to say. Pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes.
I don't want to play cash at all today. I mean, there are cash lineups. I'll talk cash game strategy with you if you want. I don't love this slate. As you said, it's basically a 3-game slate if you have to axe out Utah, Phoenix. Phoenix players are probably going to play regardless. So, I mean, one way or the other. But, like, Utah, 25 to 30 minutes there, guys. It's just an ugly, ugly slate in my opinion. So, I'm not really in on the cash games. GPP is really for me.
Yeah, I agree. Before we head into the slate, John.
Yes.
Do we have anything to tell the fine people at FA Nation?
We do, James. Do you want to pay once and win forever? Win forever.
Yes.
Because Fantasy Alarm is selling the lifetime FA family memberships. We have less than 480 left. I didn't know we had a number on them, but apparently they are running out. We have 480 lifetime memberships left for this upcoming season because, as you said, baseball starts this week. If you haven't drafted, you get the MLB Jim Bowden Draft Guide, the ultimate cheat sheet, plus 5,000 features, 35 seasonal and DFS tools, plus live chat every day throughout the MLB season, football, basketball, whatever you guys want for life, we're here for you. We also cover 11 other sports. 11 sports. Didn't realize there was even that many. Our producer, Steve Pimentel, he does WNBA. If you fancy WNBA, he puts out WNBA lineups and kills. So, I mean, we cover it all for you. Go to fantasyline.com/forever. Use promo code IMPEMBA. Get 25% off the already low price. You can use Grande. You can use Pimentel. You get 25% off. Right now, we're at $297. Get 25% off. Lifetime deal. Be a member of FA Nation. Win forever.
I didn't know there was a number on it either, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure we did have a number, and it was like, I mean, it's fast. If you don't get it now, it could be gone tomorrow. So,
I can't tell you how many times we've had people in our chat say, hey, I bought the lifetime membership yesterday, and I won today. So, like, right. It's been, it's good. And we're going to keep on keeping on. We got baseball season coming on, man.
Starting Thursday, man. Starting Thursday, opening day. But 4-game slate to talk about. Let's hop into point guard. Let's hop into the playbook where we have, I mean, obviously Ben Simmons was your play. So let's shift off the focus from Simmons to Westbrook and Lillard, who are at the top, both over $10K on FanDuel. Lillard is only $100 less than $10K on DraftKings. If you had to pick one, which one are you leaning and like which format? I mean, we're suggesting to not play cash, but there are guys and gals who play fantasy DFS and who play cash games and they don't play tournaments.
Right.
So they still want to know. So how would you? What format would you use Lillard? What format would you use Westbrook? Which one do you prefer?
I mean, I think they're both cash and GPP viable, to be honest with you. And like I said, I'm not just saying that because I don't think you should play one or the other in terms of like cash or GPPs. Right. It's just that we're looking at a slate now with really 2 clear-cut top options, both very consistent, both very good in their current positions, current roles. It's also slate size, so like if you're paying up a point guard, you can put them both in your cash game lineups. You can put them both in your GPP lineups, and they'll be perfectly fine. There's also a ton of value now at point guard, especially over on FanDuel, where you can pay up for Westbrook and go down to TJ McConnell and in price. Pay up for Lillard, use McConnell. You can use Seth Curry, who's also a point guard over on on FanDuel rather. He's relatively cheap. So I mean, there's enough value to pair it up and pair down over on FanDuel. So you can use them both. I don't really have a preference either or. Obviously, I think I like Westbrook maybe a little bit more on DraftKings because you do get that double-double, triple-double bonus points there. So, take that for what it's worth. But I think they're both very much in play. The only thing I would have to say is, you're going to take the discount on Lillard because I think you're going to want to spend up at other positions. You're going to want that savings at other positions. But, I mean, Westbrook could go for 80 and be a super contrarian play tonight.
Right. And like you mentioned, especially, having them both, at least in your FanDuel lineup, probably doesn't make sense considering if you're playing a cash game, TJ McConnell is going to be 100% owned tonight. Right, I'm gonna take the over on 100. I'm taking the over on 100%.
Well, I think he'll definitely be highly owned. I think again, there's the Seth Curry appeal is real. We've seen him play well of late. He got over the 30-minute mark the other day. He's a better pure offensive player than McConnell. We saw Curry when he was with Dallas when he was healthy. Actually, be a very productive player. So now he's playing off of Lillard, who's still dominating the usage rates, but we saw how well McConnell can play next to, or McCollum can play next to Lillard. Some of that rub can get on to, Curry, and he can have himself a good game. He's not Steph, but, he's not terrible when he gets going. He can hit the outside shot. He can make some plays. So I think you're right in terms of saving salary. It makes sense to play a lot of McConnell on this slate. But, I mean, GBPs, I think Curry is actually maybe a stronger pivot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's the case. That's definitely the pivot. But when you're just talking cash games, just eat whatever McConnell's going to give you because you and 97.9% of the field are going to have him. Do you have DJ Augustine written down in the mid-tier? Only mid-tier point guard you like? Is there anyone else you would consider, or is Augustine really just that guy here in the mid-tier?
It's really Augustine. I mean, if you want to go Dinwiddie, you can maybe consider Dinwiddie. But I don't have any interest in Rubio just with the blowout potential. If he plays 22 minutes, is it really worth paying the money for him? So especially on FanDuel where you're there is really nobody else. Now, if Conley is active, then at 9,200, I would have some interest there. I know he's not really a mid-tier play, but he's at least another pivot down. I was really on Ben Simmons at 9,900. If we get an active Mike Conley against OKC, I could really see some people potentially going there as sort of a pivot down as well. He's played really well. We know OKC recently has struggled defending the point guard position. Their DVP numbers have sort of come back down to earth a little bit. But yeah, it's really Augustine, Dinwiddie, and GVPs probably. And then it's a value, and the value again is really just Seth Curry and TJ McConnell. We don't need to, last night we talked about maybe Michael Carter-Williams, or we talked about game theorying Raul Neto. You don't need to do it anymore. You can just play McConnell. So,
I think it's actually a perfect segue to shooting guard, talking about Mike Conley there and the position, because if Mike Conley doesn't play, we have 3 shooting guards on Memphis that are all cheap. DeLon Wright, 5,300 on DraftKings. I'm going to throw Justin Holiday's name out there just because he's still playing 30-plus minutes every single night.
I know he's on the floor, but is he playing?
He is on the floor. Maybe he doesn't go inside the perimeter for many of the minutes he's on the floor, but he is standing there, running back and forth. And we have Tyler Dorsey. So how would you go about using them? I guess with Conley and without Conley. Break it down in both scenarios because I think it's definitely worth mentioning in both.
So I think there's a clear actual cash game and GVP distinction to this question. It was a little bit more wish-washy with the point guards with Lillard and Westbrook. I feel like you can play them both. Wright is the clear cash game play here. I know him and Dorsey with Conley in the lineup split time at shooting guard the other day. They split time as the backup point guard as well. They both saw 26, 27 minutes. Wright seems like the safer play that we've seen so far this year. He's just been more consistent. Dorsey, we've seen him now 2 straight games get a little bit more run. Started the other day, as you said. He's a GPP play for me, and we talk about it a lot how bad OKC is against starting shooting guards, allowing right now the 4th most fantasy points to the position. So Dorsey and GPPs, if he's starting again with a healthy Conley, I'm in on him in GPPs. If he's out and we get Wright and Dorsey starting together, both in play in all formats for me. I honestly have zero interest in Justin Holiday. We had a question actually in chat, why Dorsey over Holiday, and like I said, I understand that he played 42 minutes, in the game there without Conley against Orlando in that overtime game. 43 minutes rather. He had 22 actual. That's great. He went 4 for 9 from 3. Something we haven't really seen a lot out of him. It's actually very disappointing to see how poorly he's played in Memphis, because there was a stretch with Chicago this year where he was like a must play. He was up to like $6,000, I think, on like FanDuel. Like he was in that range. He was really balling out. Gets traded to Memphis, where you think like, oh, like they have injuries to Kyle Anderson, they have all these positions they're out, and Holiday you think would move in and play well, and he just hasn't done it for whatever reason. He just hasn't been able to do it. I'm not on Justin Holiday tonight because the other two guys just have higher usage. They're more involved in the offense. He needed 43 minutes to get you 22 actual points. What's the likelihood of that happening again? So, plus if he starts at small forward, he's dealing with Paul George. So pass on that as well.
Okay, just again, there is questions. So, and he's going to play 40 minutes if Conley sits. So, yep. I figured just get it in there. Let's go back up at the shooting guard position where we have the likes of Devin Booker, D'Angelo Russell, Jimmy Butler, and I'll throw Donovan Mitchell in the mix just because we've got a lot of Utah love today, and we get it, everybody, we get it, but they are 15-point favorites at home.
Yeah.
How close is this game going to stay? And how many fourth quarter minutes is Donovan Mitchell? Probably the same amount of minutes that me, you, and Steve combined, are all going to play in the fourth. So
I mean, he played 26 minutes against Chicago in their blowout win of what was it, like 40 points, 30 points, had 31 fantasy points. You're not paying the money to get that type of production out of him. So it's just, and I think that's repeatable here. If they were in Phoenix, maybe I would give them a little bit of a shot, but you're going to need 80 points out of Devin Booker tonight. Not fantasy points. You're going to need 80 actual points, I think, out of Devin Booker tonight to keep this game close, because they just don't have the shooters. They can't rely on Michael Bridges or Dragon Bender or Rashawn Holmes, whoever, Melton. They can't rely on these guys to come on the floor and just take the shots that Josh Jackson is okay taking or Kelly Oubre wants to take. Those guys want to get on the floor and jack up 20 shots. They're comfortable doing it. We're relying on Troy Daniels, who's in the lineup as a min-price punt play as a GPP option, coming on the floor to take 15 shots to give Booker some rest because there's nobody else to do it.
They're an awful team. They're
just such a bad team. So it's Booker and Ayton. And that's not going to get it done to keep the game close against Utah in Utah. So I'm off this game just completely. Again, I understand. I think the Suns by default are going to have to play their players regardless. So if you want to play them on that side, that's fine. But I can't touch Mitchell, pay his $8,000, $9,000 price tag, and hope that on the road this Phoenix team can somehow be competitive.
All right, so what about the other guys? Booker, you said, is going to play all the minutes, probably GPP play more than anything.
Yeah.
And what about Russell and Butler? How do you view them?
Yeah. So Butler, obviously, we talked about it on the podcast last night, and I was a big fan of him, especially on DraftKings, $7,400. I thought, again, too cheap, Jimmy Butler. Anytime he creeps towards that $7K range, you just got to play him. He's just too valuable there. You look at his current form. His last 5 games, 44, 45. 47, he had 31 against Boston, tougher defensive team, 45 against Atlanta. Now getting the Orlando matchup, there's no Ben Simmons. And I know you mentioned that his usage rate drops 0.5% with Simmons out. But again, I'm looking at current form. I'm thinking about the matchup that he's going to have against him today. I just like Butler in the spot at that price. So he's a guy I'm looking at in all formats. And Russell, for me, again, another guy coming in really strong form. I like him more as a GPP play going into Portland. Again, good matchup for him, the way he's been playing. But, of course, we know there are just times where, Spencer Dinwiddie hits 4 shots in a row, and next thing you know, it's a Dinwiddie night, and Russell's more than willing to just give him up the ball. Love the fact that we've seen him take about 4,000 shots over the last 5 games for Russell, but for me, that just makes him a GPP play.
Right. There's always volatility with D'Angelo Russell. As unfortunate as that sounds, because he was an all-star and having the career year, but
yeah, they got healthy,
volatile.
and then it just that's what happens when guys get healthy. People want their shots, and I'm glad, like I said, that he's becoming again more ball dominant. He took 35 shots the other day in that game that he scored 27 in the fourth. So that's probably the best chance they have to win. Honestly, he's their best player. So
he is definitely that. Moving down, we like the Magic guys. Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, both for tournaments. Yeah, both for tournaments. Anyone else, though? Like, you did mention Troy Daniels, and I'm going to throw this name at you, John, and I know it, and we don't have to do it, but 4-game slate, why not?
What are we looking at?
Jimmer Fredette. Hey, nothing but net. Hey.
So I talked about him when he first, the day they signed, and he said, he's going to get some run, but the coach already says, they don't want to overwhelm him, which I think is funny because he was playing basketball in China. It's not like he was just, doing nothing. Right. He only played 4 minutes. It's just unless they come out today, before roster lock, and it's Fredette's going to start and play 30, which he probably should. If you want a guy that's willing to get on the floor and shoot, Jimmer Fredette's willing to get on the floor and shoot. He averaged 35 points a game in China. So, that's your compliment to Booker, I would probably say. I don't think we're going to get that to the final week of the regular season when DFS NBA gets into all chaos. I'm off, obviously, for that. But, yeah, Daniels is the interesting play because, and I told you on the podcast last night, I really, wanted to mention him. And I don't know why I was hesitant against Detroit. I was just looking at, who is going to possibly shoot the basketball for them. And, I saw Troy Daniels, and I was like, all right, he played 21 minutes against Detroit. You get Sacramento. They have all these injuries. Maybe he's that guy. And I didn't mention him going into the Sacramento game, and I kind of wish I did so that I could take credit for it. I can't. Now you just have to trust me that I was thinking about him because he went for 25 fantasy points. Again, he's a min-price play tonight. I have to believe he's going to see 25 minutes again. They just don't have anybody else. And again, we saw last year, I think it was, him play good minutes for them and actually score when Booker, I think, was down and they had those injuries. So I'd be willing to take a GPP dart again with Daniels.
He's been that guy for a couple of years now for Phoenix. He's just the 13th man that steps in when they need somebody. And I just wanted to give Jimmer, he's my boy, I just wanted to give him a shout out.
No, it's worth it.
Let's move over to small forward, but I already want to skip the position and just move on to the rest of the positions because it's ugly.
It's better on DraftKings where you have guys on multiple position eligibility. There's some shooting guard small forwards. There's some power forward small forwards. On FanDuel, it's dark. There's it's
Paul George and everybody else.
It's Paul George and honestly, it's Paul George, it's Bridges. For me, I think it's the combo you're just going to see a ton of over on FanDuel because Bridges has to play 45 minutes because again they don't really have anybody else. And
your
as
boy.
we mentioned on the podcast, he's starting to take more shots since all these injuries. It's not a ton of shots, but he's going from 4 or 5 shots a game to 8 or 9 shots a game, which is fine. Some of those are threes. You give him a couple extra points. We already know he can give you steals. He can give you some rebounds. So if the scoring comes too, he's got a decent little floor to him. Doing some research again today because, we do that podcast more as a first look. You do a little bit deeper dive when we're doing that playbook, and you come across J.J. Redick. Now there's no Ben Simmons, and Redick has lit up Orlando this year, averaging 40 DraftKings points in 3 games against them this season. We don't often think of Redick, given everybody else on that roster, as a guy who's going to go off like that. But we did just see him go for 56 fantasy points and break a slate against Charlotte. We know that upside's there for him. In that game against Charlotte, he had 27, 10, and 8. He had 8 assists. Maybe there's some more ball handling to go around with Redick with Simmons off the floor. I'm kind of buying into some Redick pivots as well if you want to go George. And Redick on FanDuel, that works. The rest is just all GBP plays, like Jonathan Isaac, very inconsistent. But again, you think about the matchup, he could have a lot of size. Butler, Simmons isn't there anymore. In the playbook, I mentioned that maybe they would match Simmons on him for size-wise, but there's no 7-foot wings anymore for Philadelphia to put out there against them. So Isaac is interesting. Chandler Parsons for GPPs, I think we can go back to the well with. We pointed out that he only played 19 minutes coming off that back-to-back game where he played 31. They've since had a day of rest in between. They don't have a game tomorrow. I love the fact that he played 31 minutes. It shows that their willingness to let him on the floor for that many. I think he's going to consistently sit in that 25 to 30-minute range probably for the rest of the year, as long as we're not looking at any back-to-back scenarios. And Parsons, as we've talked about before, he's an elite play, just as soon as a couple of years ago. We just got Noah ruled out, so I'm hoping that we get Conley.
Conley, game time decision.
Game time decision, of course. Of course we're getting a game time decision out of Mike Conley. So I still think Parsons is fine. I think he's safe, even if Conley plays, because they just lack depth at that position, so that's fine. Right. And then Carroll and Harris, the two guys we talked about, I think you can throw them in there against Portland. They struggled to defend the small forward position. Carroll actually started the other day, played 34 minutes or so. And we know Joe Harris, another guy that plays around 30 minutes a night. So GPP darts all of them. Bridges is probably the lone cash mid-tier play for me.
Any Kabakalo love?
No, he just doesn't do enough. Like, I played him the other day. He got 12 fantasy points. So, and that's not just me being biased. If you look at, like, the rest of his time he's on the floor, like, he's never really given you a lot of production. He has a random game where, like, he had 6 assists against Dallas. Like, he's not really giving you any assist totals any other days. Like, so for me, I just don't think he's a guy that does enough. I think they're very guard dominant. And the way we saw Valanciunas take over the game, like, I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's guard play and Valanciunas with some, Parsons sprinkled in when he's on the floor.
Okay, that's fine. If we saw him play 41 minutes without Conley and them, so if that happens again.
The minutes were there. He played over Rab, which they went small. I mean, so I don't know. It's just I don't like the matchup.
It's not exciting. It's not an exciting play. Let's move on to power forward, where the two guys who top the list, and then again, it's another position that kind of drops off a cliff, is Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon. Which one are you leaning if you had to pick one, or if you are choosing? Well, I mean, FanDuel, you can just go both.
Yeah, and I think I've taken that route. So given sort of the news and the way I've had to pivot off of things, I've done some lineups where I've actually not played George, and I've played Redick, and I played Bridges, and I played both Gordon and Harris, the power forward. Right. Because the ceilings, I think, on those two guys are just higher than the rest of the field. I think I'm leaning. It's so tough. I feel like I'm leaning Harris here against Orlando. But Gordon has been, they've both played really well against one another this season. Harris just went for 50 against him. Gordon just went for 40 against Harris in their last meeting. So, and I wrote in the playbook, like, you can't have biases in DFS. It doesn't win you any money. I have never gotten Aaron Gordon right in my life. I played him the other day. Like, my lineup was crushing, but Aaron Gordon was my low score drop at, like, $8,500. Like, can't happen, So, but you got to go back to the well. They've struggled against power forwards. Harris hasn't really improved that defense too much, so that's fine. If you want to go down, like, Jeremy Grant works for me a lot. I think he's a nice mid-price play. He's going to play 35-plus minutes. He basically axed out any of the backup power forwards there. They're just going to let him run. So love that in the spot against Memphis because, as I said, they're going to go undersized. They're really only going to play Valanciunas, so Grant's perfectly okay for me. I don't want to play Dragon Bender, but he's another guy that's playing like 35 minutes right now just out of necessity. He's $3,900 over on FanDuel. I would actually rather play 20 minutes of Rashawn Holmes and hope that he plays more. In GPPs, he's 4,400 point per minute monster usually on the floor. Gets you blocks, gets you steals, flirts with a double. So Holmes is where I'm mostly leaning if I'm spending down. But again, if you just need that extra cash, go Bender, and on FanDuel, hope he just drops your score.
Let's finish it up at the center position, John, where we have Joel Embiid topping the list. He gets a pretty interesting usage bump. It's the biggest on the team. It's almost 5% with Ben Simmons off the floor. And we know Embiid just came out and said, he's the best player ever and best defensive player ever and yada, yada, yada. But it's a tough matchup. Vukovic has been a very good defender. They rank very well against centers this year. I guess, who would you prefer in this matchup? It's hard to go against Embiid without one of these guys. When one of these guys are off the floor, Embiid just becomes such a better play, always.
Yeah, I was never really planning on playing Embiid tonight, and it was really until that Simmons news broke. And as you mentioned, he gets a huge usage bump. Fantasy point minutes go through the roof, and we always want Embiid when it's 3 of them, not 4 of them. Right. In terms of their starting unit there. So, yeah, I honestly am curious now to see where the money shifts here. If everybody understands the usage that Embiid gets and how it attacks Orlando, because of all the games, this has had there's a 1.5 point spread before the Simmons news. I think. What are we looking at now?
It's a pick'em.
It's a pick 'em now with a 219 total. So I mean, right, you're gonna get probably a full game worth of Embiid. I mean, this is a dude that I don't think he's gonna go for 90 again, but like it's in his play. Like his ceiling
went for 78. He went for 75 in back-to-back games. So
yeah, I know. Like it's hard to say like it's not there for him. So, and he's averaging 56 DraftKings points against Orlando. Like if you can find the money, play him. I mean, the problem that we had, and we talked about on the podcast for like 20 minutes last night, was figuring out Valanciunas or Nurkic, given their matchups, and knowing that like no Noah now means Valanciunas is probably in line again for 35 minutes more. Yep. He played 40 against Orlando, gave us 65. Played 36 against Houston, gave us 47, and you're getting a $3,000 plus difference on DraftKings. Right. I mean, on FanDuel, over on DraftKings, you're getting what, like $4,000 savings almost, like close to it. I mean, and you could still get 60 out of Valanciunas potentially. Now I know it's a tougher matchup, right? It's not against Orlando, which almost speaks more to Embiid, because we saw Valanciunas put up 65 against Orlando and Vucevic, and they had no answer for him. OKC's at least throwing Steven Adams at him for 30 minutes. So it's tough to go to Valanciunas, but then you get Nurkic here against Brooklyn, who in 28 minutes went for like 50 against them.
And we just saw JaVale
go
for $1 million.
He went for the second highest scoring player in the slate. It was James Harden with like 79 and JaVale McGee with 76 or whatever. And it's like, so how do you avoid the centers versus the Nets? Like, we've talked about it all year long. And I know Kanter's, looming for 18 minutes, and that like sucks a little bit. But I mean, if Nurkic is just rolling, they're not going to take him off the floor. Right. I don't think. Like, they're just going to feed him. So center is just loaded tonight, and there's plenty of other positions that you and I just hate. I said on DraftKings, play two centers. I still believe in that theory. Play two centers. But on FanDuel, you have to decide, and it's really like, are you paying up for George and Lillard, or are you going to spend down and play Embiid? Because that's the money that you have to decide. So they're all great plays. It's really the only three players I would consider. I don't want Vucevic. I don't want Gobert. If you want to talk about minutes, like maybe Ayton's worth of consideration, but I'd rather not. I'd rather just play those three guys. And I talked about if you're spending down, like you can throw Kanter out there for 20 minutes because he went up for 30 fantasy points in 20 minutes against Brooklyn earlier this year. If you're gonna punt, that's the punt spot. But for me, it's very hard still for me to figure out where I want to go at center. Make three lineups, play them all. I don't know.
Doesn't it kind of feel like you brought up Ayton, who is $100 less than Valanciunas, and he's $100 more than Nurkic? It almost feels like you're throwing away money at that point. Not like if you were to play him over a Nurkic or a Valanciunas, like
you would only play Ayton in like a game stack versus the Suns versus Utah backups. You hope, right? He played 32 minutes against Utah 2 weeks ago and only had 21 fantasy points in that game, 2 points, 9 rebounds. So didn't do well.
It's a contrarian play. I mean, you got to get contrarian sometimes, especially on these 4-game slates. All right, before we get out of here, John, which we again pat on our backs. We're doing well again, getting out of here on time. 4-game slate. Give me like 2 players that you expect or 2 players that you could see going for like 10x tonight at their price tags.
10x at their price points.
I mean, look,
where do you come up with these things?
Do you love Terrence Ross? Terrence Ross could be a 10x kind of guy.
You think he can go for 50 tonight? Can we cut it down to like?
Let's go 8x. Let's go 8x.
I'll give you like Redick. Like Redick can go for like, it's 6,500 and 5,300. He can go for 40. Okay. I think that's pretty fair. And I can go Toby for 8x. Toby can get to 50 tonight. So we'll roll with those two guys. I know they're on the same team, but I'll stick with it. If you want Dorsey can go for it too. Dorsey will be my 10x guy. How about that? He's 42 and like 38 or something like that. So Dorsey will be my 10x play. One more question.
Favorite team stack. If you were to stack one team tonight that is going to be in every winning GPP lineup tonight.
I think it's going to be Philadelphia.
Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think you can go Butler especially on DraftKings, you can go like Butler, Reddick, and Harris and have plenty of money. So
And then if you want, throw McConnell for the min salary.
Sure,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Well, that does it. 6:31, 29 minutes to lock. Lineups are out, right, John?
Yeah, lineups are out.
Lineups are out. Playbooks out. Starting fives out. Big shout out to Steve Pimental for producing today. We'll catch you guys in the winner's circle.